Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Humans generate a lot of wastewater. Wastewater includes everything that comes from our showers and baths to our washing machines and dishwashers. It also includes what we flush down the toilet or our sinks. All wastewater must be treated, and that's why our cities and towns have treatment plants. In the coming weeks, Across the Fence is collaborating with the Lake Champlain Basin Program to share with you important information about water quality. And today we start with wastewater. For an introduction to what happens at a city's wastewater facility, we start in Plattsburgh.
A wastewater treatment plant is designed to remove all the stuff, all the pollution, all the contamination that gets introduced. But what it really is the final line of defense between the contaminants that residents are generating and businesses and industrial users are generating and the environment. So this is basically a environmental defense facility.
We all contribute to water quality impacts to Lake Champlain. Wastewater treatment facilities throughout the watershed, which treat waste of all types from the entire community, are easily identified sources of phosphorus to Lake Champlain.
In the 1970s, EPA had its Clean Water Act, which was adopted, which provided regulations on what levels you needed to treat to before you discharge that wastewater. And they also provided a lot of funding so that you could build a facility like this to treat the wastewater. What we're governed by is the TMDL, the total maximum daily load, which says we can discharge about 65 pounds of phosphorus per day. The scientific studies, my understanding is, have said that if we stay below that amount of phosphorus, then we shouldn't have degraded water quality in our portion of Lake Champlain. And basically what we're trying to do is get all the stuff out of the water so it can go back into the environment, and in this case the Saranac River and then Lake Champlain, without causing environmental problems or public health issues. The phosphorus that still comes in can be in some toothpastes, there might be a little bit in some cleaners. It's in foods that we eat and gets naturally excreted through bodily functions and into the waste collection system. In general, we probably get 150 pounds of phosphorus a day that comes into the plant. So we remove over 50% of it, sometimes 70%, maybe even pushing 80 or 90% sometimes. We use physical processes like gravity in bar screens. We use chemical processes like aluminum sulfate and polymers. We use biological processes like microorganisms to do all this work. The microorganisms are eating these suspended solids and the soluble organics, and they're also uptaking phosphorus that's in the waste flow and incorporating into their cell bodies. So those microorganisms then come into what's called a final clarifier, where they are settled to the bottom, and in effect we're removing phosphorus from the system through removing the bugs from the waste flow. So the phosphorus that's removed in our treatment system ends up in solids, so it can be transported in a big dump truck.
Both New York and Vermont have TMDLs that limit the amount of phosphorus that can be discharged to Lake Champlain from wastewater treatment facilities. Some communities are installing more advanced treatment technologies to help achieve the goals of the TMDLs.
We had our phosphorus permit changed. It's an $18 million upgrade. Before we were allowed to discharge 6,100 pounds of phosphorus a year. Now, our new permit, we're like around the 2,500 pounds a year that we can discharge. The building behind me is one of the additions that was added to the upgrade for the plant, and that's basically added for our phosphorus removal. And what they are, it's the water passes through the cloth, and the cloth is like a 5 micron, which is a real fine cloth. And what it does, it just removes any small particles, fine particles of basically your suspended solids that's still in the wastewater. They do a good job, yeah.
Maintenance and improvements to wastewater treatment facilities is very costly, but is necessary to achieve the greatest phosphorus reductions possible. Investments in this infrastructure and in all phosphorus reduction efforts help to realize our priorities for clean water and human health.
Lake Champlain's a jewel. Water quality is key to that, and the better it is for the environment, and the better it is for the community, and the better it is for the broader region.
All right. And on the Vermont side of the lake, there are 92 municipal wastewater treatment plants. 2 of those are located in the city of South Burlington. To learn more, we're joined now by Bob Fisher. Bob is the Water Quality Superintendent for South Burlington. Thank you so much for being with us, Bob.
Thank you.
And so what's being done to improve the quality of the water discharged from treatment facilities?
Well, these facilities generally are the most expensive thing a citizen owns. The replacement cost of just this facility is over $100 million, and with the 34 pump stations, we're in the $500 to $600 million range if you had to replace it. They were built over time, just like the interstate system. And the 6,000 connections, this would be the most expensive thing you own next to your home in a municipality. These facilities are under 5-year federal permits, and every 20 years you have to do an engineering evaluation and upgrade them. Also, the regulations are continually getting tighter, so there is a lot of money being invested at all times into these facilities.
Yeah. And very important. So when the public hears about an overflow or a discharge from a municipal treatment facility, what does that mean, and what makes that happen?
Well, there's generally 2 reasons. What you're generally hearing are combined sewer overflows. These facilities, these pipes, when I was in charge of Montpelier, 26% of the pipes were pre-1926. Wow. These systems were built throughout the turn of the century, et cetera, and the wastewater plants came in onto them in the 60s. There was a decision in the 1960s on how much they were going to spend, and they built the pipes so large, and when the rain goes over that, they go out. That's a continual problem that all the municipalities are working on. South Burlington does not have CSOs, luckily. So the other thing is something could break. There are so many parts and things. There's great redundancy here. There's all computer monitoring, as you can see behind me. But, you know, with 34 pump stations and 2 facilities, things could break. It's extremely rare, but that's the 2 reasons you would hear of
right.
overflow.
And pretty big rain episodes also, I imagine, really test the system. But the city of South Burlington has received a number of awards for its work in water quality. Congratulations to you and your staff. So tell us a little bit about what those awards and what you do differently.
Well, the city has invested very well in their facilities and in the system. We were also the first stormwater utility in the state. Wastewater was 65% of the phosphorus going to Lake Champlain in 1985. It's currently 3%. That's a huge success story that's rarely mentioned. So we were very proactive here. We put $28 million into this facility in 2011, and we are putting out extremely low numbers right now. For instance, for our 22,000 people, we are permitted to put out about 15 pounds a day. And for instance, last week, we put out about a half a pound a day for 20,000 people. That's about the same as 20 people on septic tanks. 55% of Vermonters are on septic tanks. That's the most in the nation by far. And most people don't realize that generally comes to wastewater plants to be processed.
Right. So, you know, we hear a lot, of course, about TMDL, the total maximum daily load for phosphorus, which is unique. So how do the 2 plants in South Burlington have made changes to meet those EPA limits?
Well, luckily we were very proactive, so we're putting out extremely low numbers already, but it's always increasing. And there are many other things like they're coming down the line, PFAS, microplastics. And that's why we encourage building in, because these are very robust facilities that we can do microfiltration and get rid of these things. A septic tank, you cannot.
So like, yeah, things like microplastics, these are very tricky, that people realize that even our fleece and what comes through the washing machine is very tricky for you guys. So are you, you have to add and do new things all the time to upgrade and kind of beat what's coming at you? Yes.
You're always playing catch up as more and more things come out. And also, we're generally the largest energy user in any town. About 60% of the energy is used at the wastewater plant. But we produce electricity here, not enough to cover our costs. But there are a few worldwide that are actually producing more. So it's a very exciting time that the industry continues to put out cleaner and cleaner water. Unfortunately, our water leaving this facility is cleaner in every single parameter than when it reaches the Winooski River.
Wow, that's fantastic. So phosphorus is clearly a problem in Lake Champlain. Are there plans there for the future, or you know, what about the long term? What are we looking at? What are you looking at for the generations to come?
Unfortunately, this is a long-term problem. You know, in the 1950s, the federal government encouraged crop production to be increased. They trucked in trainloads of phosphorus, and it's still in the sediment. It's still in the riverbanks. It's going to take a long time. We need to continue to bring it down. But as I said, only 3% is wastewater now. So it's really all in stormwater. As the rains come, wash across farmlands, residents, commercial property. That's really where you need to capture it now.
Okay, and everything that goes down the sink or toilet, you know, obviously ends up at the treatment plant. What should we not be flushing, including those wipes that we're all using, are causing you problems? So talk about that, and what else is a problem?
Yes, nothing but the 3 Ps: poop, paper, and pee. Only 1% is actually solids that come here to the facility. It's actually, you think about it, your showers, your sinks, your washing machines. It's generally water that comes here, but we process it very well. And don't put anything down the toilet. Generally, the trash can's there, but also be careful what you put in the trash, because all the Coventry is the only landfill in Vermont, and it is lined, and that water is all collected when it rains there and brought back to a wastewater plant. So don't put medicines in there. Save them for. Be very cognizant of anything you put in. Also, any sort of clogs, you know, you put grease down, we're only responsible from the street and everywhere. Not only when you cause a problem here, you can cause an overflow, which damages the environment, is costly for the city and your pocketbook, but can also clog up your house, and then you're going to have to pay to fix that. I know all too well, as my wife flushed a bunch of wipes down, and I had to get them out, and I even said, I'm the guy that says don't flush it. And I thought you're overreacting. I'll never do it again.
Okay, so pee, poop, and paper, that's it that goes down there. Wipes clog pipes is another slogan that I hear that you guys say. So Bob Fisher, thank you so much for joining us today and explaining, and for all the very important work you do.
Thank you very much. No one ever knows we're here until we're not. Yeah. But we're always here for the environment and for public health. The main reason.
You bet. To watch more videos from this series and learn more about how farmers, municipalities, and community leaders are making a commitment to clean water, visit www.cleanwaterwork.com. Once again, thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Take care.